ever get involved in praying to demon spirits?
A fellow that had been on a particular ship with me, he told me, hey, I got something fantastic to tell you. He said, I am affiliated with people that speak with the spirits of the dead. How would you like to talk to the spirit of your dead mother? And I was shocked. I was shocked. He said, you wouldn't be afraid of talking to the spirit of your dead mother, would you? Well, I said, I'll tell you what, I would have to give that some thought. That's something I never thought about before in my life.
Most of us probably haven't. A little afraid of something like that.
Well, he says, you know, it's written all over your face. You're afraid of going to a seance. But he says, I know you. You're going to come. And then he started telling me how brave I was when I was aboard ship, you know, different things. He says, you're not the same man, you've changed. You're chicken. That's all I needed to hear. I said, when do we go to a seance? So one Saturday evening, we were in the place. It was our first time, very beautiful. We played the medium. There was a lady. She had a gorgeous new home in Montreal. And there were about 20 invited guests there. I wish I was one of them. And she communicated with the spirits for there's different people there. And they're telling them what the spirit said. One man said, I would like to talk to my friend that died 6 months ago. But I don't want him to appear. Just want to talk to him. Because he says, I don't trust you talking to my friend for me. So the medium says, let me inquire of the spirit. Yeah, the spirit will talk with you. And that big masculine voice was heard in the place. It says, hi, Frank. It's nice of you to ask for me to talk with you. And they had a little chat. And after it was over, Frank says, this is the greatest thing on earth, to be able to talk with the spirits of the dead. Then the medium said, we have a very special surprise tonight for you people. A spirit will manifest itself openly here in a few minutes. And it's like a big gust of wind hit the building. And right through the wall. Now the lights weren't terribly bright, but they were like living room lights. A couple of floor lamps and maybe some of these. And that translucent being seemed to come right out of the wall.
How did you feel right at that moment?
It's almost like my heart stopped a little bit. You know, very weird feeling. So it was a lady in a beautiful evening gown, swirling. And she said to Mary, my dear sister, you are so wonderful to have asked for me. And Mary fainted and fell right off her chair on the floor. And a couple of guys jumped up and picked her up, and spirit gone. That was the beginning of it.
That's how you got into it.
Yeah, that's the way I got into it. After a while, you see, there's something interesting about the human mind. You can adjust an awful lot of stuff. You can adjust to a lot of things that would terrify you to begin with. After a while, they become common and ordinary.
So you mean contact with the supernatural can become commonplace and ordinary and doesn't bother anybody?
Yeah.
In other words, the more that you do it, you're not uncomfortable.
That's right.
It's just not an uneasy feeling.
Yeah.
So how did you feel about it?
Then I got into a secret society that worshiped the spirits, you see.
Well, how is that different from the seance, Roger?
It happens that the seance are not involving in many ways. But when you get into a secret society of spirit worshippers, then, and especially when you're invited there by the direction of the higher-ups in the spirit world, you never get out of there alive. And it's exactly what my friend and I were up against. We didn't know anything about. And there was a very, very popular big band leader,
jazz
band, Yeah, very famous. And one night we went to one of these seances, and he was with his wife.
So Roger, you're at this restaurant. What happened?
We sat there, and we had our favorite alcoholic beverages, you know. And as we talked, the band leader says, he says, I want power. I go right to the source of power. And he says, how do you think that I became famous the way that I am? Well, I said, you must have had some good luck. Well, he says, there's no such thing as good luck. He says, there's either some power working for you somewhere, or you don't get ahead in this world. Not in my type of occupation. So it went from there. We got talking about spirit worship.
Did it intrigue you? Or did it make you want to find out more about what exactly he was talking about?
Yeah. So he said the supposed spirits of the dead that you're talking with are demon spirits. They're fallen angels. They're beautiful beings.
Just set it out, just like that.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't make you uneasy when he said they were...
Well, you know, it shocked you a little bit, you know. Something that you first hear mentioned to you. He said, you guys have got a great future ahead of you. Because we've been told, the high priest of our society, secret society, has been told that the master has very special plans for you too.
Now, what did he mean by the master?
Satan. And we were interested to hear more about it. And he told us, he says, look, we worship spirits. We worship Lucifer, Lucifer and all his angels. They're just as beautiful as they did before they were cast out of heaven. He says there was a misunderstanding in the whole thing. He says among the inhabitants of the galaxies. And he says our master was misunderstood. And God did not bear with him like he does with people that make mistakes today. So we're in a warfare, good against evil. And we happen to be the evil ones, but we're not that bad. He says, I look at this business between the forces of good and evil. He says, you believe in one person believes in God, and everyone believes in Lucifer. It's like politics.
So the great controversy is real. And you've heard someone talk about it that's on the other side.
And to these people, they are sold to the fact that Christ will not return to this planet with power and great glory. He's going to abdicate all claims to the planet, because the high priest once said that Christ will abdicate all claims to the planet because he knows that it is lawfully and rightfully Satan's. And at that time, he says, so the priest says, well, now, he says, for those of you that are new, let me tell you that this is the most feasible way, he says, to please the spirits is to deride Christ and his people, you know, and his church and all that. So they sing out of Christian hymnals.
They didn't sing Christian words to the hymns, however.
Well, they changed a lot of them. Yeah. It's a form of blasphemy. Such as you see today in the rock music world. You see the entertainers, they have these crosses. The ladies got earrings, crosses. The guys got crosses. This is a form of blasphemy, a form of deriding Christ. You see, spirits cause the people to do that, to find pleasure in wearing this type of emblem, which is the cross is the emblem of the crucifixion of Christ to the Christians. The master of my life has revealed to me that it is time for you people to become acquainted with the worship room of the gods, where they had the spirits that had materialized. They photographed them, and then they had paintings made of them. And there was probably about maybe 100 of those around the place.
So how did you feel when you walked into that room?
I felt that these people had power, and they had a lot of it.
Did that attract you?
Yes and no.
You had mixed feelings about it?
I had mixed feelings about it. Yeah. because to a certain extent things looked so good and sounded so good to us. But you see, I'd been brought up in a Christian home. My dad says, well, you know, if you get involved in wrongdoing, you're going to have to pay the price. There's always a cost for everything in this world. So this thought kept creeping to my mind. Just how far you go with these spirits before we start paying the price.
So it made you just a little bit nervous.
Oh, yes.
But yet you kept going back.
Oh, there was no way out. Because that's what we're told.
You knew at that time.
Yeah.
So you were moving forward more on fear.
More on fear, yes. Because the high priest said that the master had special plans for us in our lives. And that no one ever went into this society unless they were invited by the spirits. So that was made very clear.
In reality, Roger, you were chosen by high-powered demon spirits to be a part of their human, special, privileged group.
You see, these people in Montreal, the society, like the priest mentioned, there's thousands of spirit worshippers in only different societies of spirit worshippers in this world. But he says we are the elite. We know the real truth about the master and his angels. And they're not hideous-looking beings. They are gorgeous creatures. And from the paintings that they had on the wall of the walls of that worship room.
Now, when you would go to these praise sessions, what kinds of things happened at those sessions?
Well, there's a lot of success stories. The masters has done this for me and that for me. I remember one.
At what point did this demon worship start to affect you personally, Roger?
Well, it wasn't too long that the priest mentioned to us that the time had arrived for us to start trusting the spirits and give the spirits a chance to work for us. And there was a number of gifts that you could choose from. That the priest mentioned to us that the time had arrived for us to start trusting the spirits and give the spirits a chance to work for us. And there was a number of gifts that you could choose from. There's his devotions and the worship room of the gods, and he will use a trance medium to converse with certain demon spirits that will inform him in regards to ancient history. And the man shook his head a little bit like this. His eyes went glazed, and he stayed at it for a half hour. And the spirit spoke to him. So then the spirit counselor. And what would you like to know?
And so he asked the questions of one of these human beings that was channeling.
Oh yeah, the voice changed and everything. The voice changed of the person completely. And
it identified itself as a spirit guide.
Oh, yeah, spirit counselor, yeah.
Okay, a spirit counselor. And then proceeded to tell him all the events that he was asking,
Yes.
answer his question?
They had three major policies that were going to be followed. First, Lucifer says, we have to make sure that people, humans, get to believe that Satan and his angels do not really exist.
You know, Roger, that's interesting because a recent research study report that I read indicated that in a national survey, I believe it's over 75% of people do not really believe in a real tangible devil. But there is one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the next thing, the three parts policy that they had adopted there, the second one was to find a way of being able to get total control of people's minds. And that would be done by taking hypnotism out of the realm of the occult and introduce it as a new science for the benefit of mankind. They felt that by taking hypnotism out of the realm of the occult and introducing it as a new science for the benefit of mankind, they could then use people of great renown, educators, people of capacity, that would do great things, such as supposedly regress people in time to former lives. And of course, after the session is over, the person would knock know a thing about ancient history, and the person she or he has talked about performing, you know, certain deeds, let's say 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. But this was their strategy. Now, what this would do for the thing is this, that it would create in the minds of the general public, solidly set now in the general public, an unwavering trust in that great deception. So now this would be a way of de-Christianizing the Western world through the avenue of mysticism.
The three things were, number one, that they did not want Satan did not want the human family to think that he or his angels existed.
Right.
The second point that you made had to do with taking control of people's minds.
That's right.
The third point was what?
Was to destroy the Bible without burning it.
Okay.
See?
And what was his strategy on that?
On that, it was very interesting. Because after the Great General Council, it was decided that Satan would tutor Charles Darwin personally in setting up the principles of his theories of evolution. He was tutored by Lucifer himself, fallen Lucifer. And at that time, it was understood, Satan and his spirit counselors understood, that if a person was led to believe in the theory of evolution, it would, in his life, destroy completely the creation week of the Bible, the fall of man, and the plan of redemption. It would do away with it. Anyone that teaches a theory of evolution is considered to be a minister of a great religious system. And he said that every teacher of that theory is recognized by the Spirit as a person of great value and receives a very special unction from Satan himself, giving great power to induce spiritual blindness, to convince and convert. Three capacities. Is the grain plain, the master's grain plain, for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. It's going to be done in a unique manner. This grain plain is going to take people are going to eat the stuff, because it says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies, that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet, unless something seriously proper is done to avoid it.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. Just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe. We'd forget all of the local differences that we have.
Il est resté plus de 9 heures sur la Lune. En 1971, Edgar Mitchell devient un héros américain. Il est le 6e homme à arpenter notre satellite. Là-haut, il n'a pas vu de petits hommes verts, et pour cause, les extraterrestres ne sont plus sur la Lune, mais ici, sur Terre, et depuis longtemps.
Je ne sais pas combien, ni où, ni comment ils font, mais ils nous observent, et ici on peut voir leurs appareils tout le temps.
Edgar Mitchell est né à Roswell. Pour lui, c'est sûr, quand il avait 17 ans, un ovni s'est écrasé dans sa ville, c'était en 1947. Et depuis, le gouvernement dissimule les corps de 4 aliens retrouvés dans le désert.
La raison de ce complot, c'est parce qu'ils ne savaient pas s'ils étaient hostiles et si on pouvait se protéger. Ils ne voulaient pas non plus que les soviétiques soient au courant.
Mais aux États-Unis, la communauté qui croit aux ovnis ne le soutient pas. Edgar Mitchell est isolé.
Il dit beaucoup de choses depuis longtemps, mais il ne fait que des déclarations, sans rien donner, ni nom, ni document, rien du tout. Et dans ce domaine, vous apprenez vite à être très prudent.
And the UFO phenomenon is real, although it's been covered up by our governments for quite a long time.
Whoa! Hang on a minute, but this is big. Whoa! All of this is quite a shock to me.
Well, I'm sorry you haven't been reading the papers recently. It's starting to open up quite a bit.
So you're telling me? Well, there's a lot of information to take on board. Hang on a minute. I mean, listen, I've heard crazy UFO nuts tell me this kind of thing before. I've never had Dr. Ed Mitchell, the sixth man to walk on the moon, a respected scientist in his own right, announce to me that we've been visited by aliens from other planets and that they definitely are out there. There's no debating it.
Well, that's the first time you've ever talked to me, or I've told you about it before.
So you believe in you believe the whole deal?
There's more nonsense out there about this than there is real knowledge, but it is a real phenomenon, and there's quite a few of us that it's been well covered up by all of our governments for the last 60 years or so, but slowly it leaks out, and some of us are privileged to have been briefed on some of it. I happen to have grown up in I don't even know whether you know this place, Roswell, New Mexico, where presumably the Roswell incident of 1947 took place, and I'm quite knowledgeable of the lore there, and since I grew up there, but I've also been in military circles and intelligence circles that knows beneath the surface of what has been public knowledge.
What do you think the intent of the aliens is? Is it hostile or peaceful?
No, it's not hostile. It's pretty obvious that if it were hostile, we'd have been gone by now.
Really? I mean, what?
We could have been.
Wow.
We had no defense, if that's what the real intent was.
And what are we talking? What do they look like? Are we talking like the traditional sort of?
You've seen some of the pictures. The pictures that I know of, some of them are these little people that look strange to us. And as far as I know, from my contacts that have had contact, that's pretty accurate.
I was introduced to the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in the U.S., the father of rocketry. In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space because there is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies, he said, against whom we're going to build the space-based weapon systems, the first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids. And then he would repeat to me over and over. And the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat. As a military strategist, as a person who worked on the MX missile, which I did later, he said, you will find that there is going to be a spin to find some enemy against whom we have to build space-based weapons. And now we should expect the spin. And that's the formula, except that it's all based on a lie.
A supersonic saucer. Called the Silver Bug, it was truly revolutionary. The plans show in detail a multi-jet engine craft that boasted amazing maneuverability and speed. It's an intriguing thought that this concept may tie in with the work of the German scientists who brought saucer technology to the US at the close of the Second World War.
What was needed were certain people when people are spotting aircraft and then telling reporters that they've seen something very unusual flying out of an airbase in Nevada. And frankly, this was the origin of a lot of the sightings that took place in the mid-50s, 1954, 55, 56, of unidentified flying objects, the UFOs. So the CIA was involved in encouraging people to believe that, yes, they saw UFOs, and the CIA and the military tried to be very helpful to reporters to get these stories out, to divert the attention of the country, and particularly the people in this region, about what they had actually seen.
Mexican Air Force pilots capturing on videotape what are said to be 11, count them, 11 UFOs.
The Mexican Air Force has released a video that some of you are going to find difficult to believe. A journalist says it shows images of UFOs tracking a Mexican military plane.
So what's the truth about UFOs? The story of successive attempts to develop radically new forms of flight, conducted under the strictest secrecy, is inextricably bound up with our relationship with UFOs over the last 60 years. Whether it's Allied pilots buzzed by strange balls of fire in 1942, or the Roswell incident 5 years later, there is a strong case to be made that secret military technology offers a convincing explanation for many UFO stories.
Anytime the government has secrets that they can keep from us, they can manipulate us by those secrets. In essence, they still remain 25 years at least ahead of us in technology, information, and knowledge, and secrets, and they are using them against us. I heard over the years many times over that the plan to usher in the New World Order would be to make all the people in this country and around the world feel totally helpless to prevent the New World Order from occurring, this world dominance plan, by saying that we had been invaded by aliens, so that we would say, oh, please, UN, come in and help us all. So bear in mind that there is a plan, orchestration, to get people to be submissive through the secret technology and information that they're keeping from you under the blanket of a so-called National Security Act.
We are building, I mean, all my UFO friends, I need to shake them because they're so, frankly, they're extremely naive, Alex. They really believe we're building toward disclosure. I believe we're building toward a mass, carefully manufactured fake event where ETs, who are really humans, who are really part of this secret clique, who are probably Nazis, you know, who developed or perfected their technology from World War II, which is why you've got to get, you know, Joseph on. They are going to basically fake out the world. And there's an incredible window on the Nazi black ops programs, the compartmentalized, incredible high technology efforts that were being funded by the Nazi war machine, particularly toward the end of the war, in a desperate effort to win the war, and they fastened their hopes on several key technologies, some of which appear to be the control of gravity itself, which again is a separate piece of data from my work, which came at this from a hyperdimensional physics perspective.
I mean, we know there's a lot of suppressed technology. I mean, 20 years after the B-2 bomber was already in service, they declassified it. So we have a lot of cases of that. We know there's a whole shadow government.
This is technology in physics, Alex, that would make anything you think you know like a candle flame compared to a hydrogen bomb. This is a physics that literally allows you to rearrange time.
But I mean, imagine, you've got all these compartments in these pyramids, pyramids within pyramids of compartmentalization. That's why that's the New World Order symbol. And I mean, we don't know what they've got because they are so secret. We know they lie so much. We just know it's advanced. Mainline scientists say they're 30 years advanced. So Richard C. Hoagland, what I'm saying to you is, I'm entertaining what you're saying. I respect you. I think you're a great guy. My only issue is, like you said, dealing with what we know they could be up to.
The fact, Alex, we have done experiments. We have our own data. We have experiments now from the Soviet Union. 30, 40 years when the Iron Curtain came down, you know, when glasnost finally prevailed, a huge amount of stuff was declassified from the KGB as well. And we now have put this data together. We not only know what the physics is, we know what it can do, we know what it's based on, we know how to make it work. We've seen in our own experiments ample evidence. We've seen experiments across the American landscape and even in Europe that vindicate various parts of this. And the latest thing I'm working on, it looks like von Braun himself was deeply involved in some of this early physics experimentation, but they're keeping all the good stuff for themselves. The reason is that if we got access to the good stuff, if we got access to the technologies, the energy, you know, we wouldn't be worried about $4, $5 a gallon gas or $10 a gallon gas. We would live like people are supposed to live, all 6 billion of us who could live lightly on the earth, Alex, with this technology.
And live longer, and live longer.
Absolutely, and better, and, you know, you could live to 200-300 and have the virility of your 20s and 30s. There's extraordinary medical breakthroughs, there's extraordinary physics breakthroughs, technology breakthroughs, energy. It's all been kept away.
Think about it. We're already on a planet hurtling through space, all these wonders around you, and you've been taught it's bizarre to question, and that's because there's so many kooks in the alternative movement who do talk about ridiculous, you know, Hollywood-style green men, instead of really looking at the shadow government and all these crazy secret societies that are admittedly running NASA and the shadow government.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, during this talk that I'm going to give you, I'm going to explain to you the history of this phenomenon, who the secret government really is, and I will name them by name, the beginning group, the study group. I will tell you who they are today. I'm going to tell you what this is all about. I'm going to tell you who's selling drugs to your children, and I'm going to tell you why the United States government is afraid for you to find out what the truth is regarding UFOs.
It turns out that even though she remembered that she'd been part of the team to debrief the astronauts, she couldn't remember a thing that they said. She couldn't remember why she no longer was working with NASA. She couldn't remember. In other words, her memory lapses were enormous, and I don't think they were feigned, because we now found the same pattern in all the flight crews. Because the awful truth, Alex, is they have been brainwashed. They have been mind controlled. They have had a technology, a very sophisticated technology, which took away the real missions that they...
Top secret underground bases that a huge number of experimental rocket ships and circular flying discs were developed. The prototype V7 craft was powered by engines manufactured by BMW. But we have been given patents from leading German manufacturing companies, including UHA, Krups and BMW, which prove beyond all reasonable doubt that Hitler considered the Nazi secret space program a top priority. And more than 15 billion Deutschmarks were spent developing craft of all shapes and sizes.
Are these in fact U.S. prototypes of a captured Nazi H-9 flying wing? In the late 50s, the U.S. Air Force funds the Avrocar, a flying saucer that looked like a Nazi secret project called the Repulsi. And in 1965, a UFO crashes in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. It is reportedly bell-shaped and covered with distinctive markings, just like a radical Nazi device that may have been built at the end of the war. Did the Nazis build successful saucer prototypes? Did the U.S. government and other nations develop them in secret? Are all of these sightings human-engineered craft?
So, if you don't want to be panicked and stampeded by this phony threat from space, then you'll study the UFO issue and you'll find out the truth about the issue. And then when they say, oh no, there really are aliens and they're coming to eat you and you have to give up all the rest of your liberty so we can protect you, you can say, nah, I don't think so.
And then he would repeat to me over and over. And the last card, the last card, the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat. That it's all based on a lie.